Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Obviously over the last few days there's been quite a lot of news articles, so I'm kind of going through the stuff that happened yesterday and trying to get it to you today. So we had quite an interesting changelog today, yesterday, and it fixed a few bugs, and also it brought in a new system which I personally kind of question, and I'll go through my reasons why. So this is update 1.85.0.184. As you can see, there's a bunch of bugs that were fixed. So the first one is a bug when there was a conflict between different control axes has been fixed. That sounds good. A bug whilst using a helicopter weapon overheat caused weapon reload has been fixed. Okay. A bug, I mean, at least in arcade, in planes, that's what it used to do. I'm guessing with helicopters, because of the mechanics, I mean, it is kind of arcade. Well, I suppose what game mode you're in, actually. Never mind. Maybe in helicopter arcade, or whatever they're calling that thing now. Basically, the helicopter mode, it's probably a little bit different. A bug when a base destroyed by a fire did not count in air battles has been fixed. By a fire, you say? That does sound incredibly fun. But it is nice that they have fixed that. A bug when depth charges spent in a battle did not affect their amount in the hangar has been fixed. So you basically just had unlimited barrels. Well, you might as well, because they're completely useless in the game. A bug when an ATGM launch from a helicopter caused a shift of the bomb site has been fixed. Thank you, Lord. That was one of the very odd bugs that has kind of been there from the start for helicopters. Basically what would happen is you would have your targets lined up in the crosshairs, you would fire the ATGM, and for some reason your target reticle would kind of shiver all over the place, and it was as if it went from a stabilized state to a non-stabilized state, and I have no idea why it did this, but then the opposite also happened, where you would go from an unstabilized state, and then after firing you would go to a stabilized one, and it generally depended on movement. So if you were stood still, you would go from stabilized to non-stabilized, and then if you were moving, it would do it the other way around. Very, very odd. A bug when controlling a helicopter from gunner view, it caused turret rotation has been fixed. That's nice. I've got a feeling that might have the gunner views in aircraft, where if you go there, some of the gunners can kind of get stuck in areas, or they turn when you don't tell them to do so. I feel like that might be a similar bug that we're seeing. The next one is a bug when auxiliary weapons were damaged. No filed repair icon was displayed has been fixed. Okay, well that's good. Once again, just fixing a simple bug in the game. A bug when ground vehicles had no visual display of their tracks after joining a battle for a second time after a first vehicle has been destroyed has been fixed. That was kind of an odd one as well, but it's nice to see that they fixed it. One of the things I would like to bring up though, talking about invisible stuff, I have at least over the last week or so playing naval and also playing ground forces, seen two issues that used to be issues, and they were fixed a long time ago, and now they're back. And this is invisible munitions. So a lot of the time when I get bombed in naval, there will be invisible bombs. Now remember, I do play naval arcade. Sometimes there will also be invisible torpedoes, and I don't just mean my crew not detecting them, I also mean not being able to visibly see them on the map. On top of this, there have also been reports on the Discord and from myself of invisible ground vehicles, where you are just getting shot from somewhere and you have no idea what's going on, and these are player-controlled vehicles. So I've got a feeling that something is off when it comes to this. Something with the vision in the game has gone a little bit slightly wonky, but I don't want to fulfill a bug report yet, because I'm not entirely sure either what is causing it, or why it's happening, or if it is fully reproducible. Because sometimes in naval battles I do see bombs, sometimes I do see torpedoes, but others, they just are non-existent, and I don't even hear the noise. It's just an odd case, which, as I said, at the moment I'm just trying to figure out. So here's the big gameplay change that I think is worth talking about. So they're changing how capture zones work, so I'll read through it verbatim and then we'll have a chat about it. So, mission points reward mechanics for capturing zones has been changed. The reward is now split between the players, depending on their contribution. For every extra player who is capturing the zone, more points are added to the pool. Each capturing player cannot receive more than the base amount of points, 300 for ground and air battles, 150 for naval, and less than a minimum, 100 for ground and air battles, 60 for naval. If a player's vehicle, the one he used to capture a zone, is destroyed, his reward points are removed from the pool and won't go to other players. And then they give some examples. So the first example is if there are just 3 people capping a zone. So the pool would be the 300 initial points plus 200 from the other 2 extra players. So that means that you have 500 points in total, which is divided by 3, since there are 3 people capturing the zone, 167 points. The next one is, once again in a ground battle, you have a player who almost captures a zone when 2 more players arrive. The pool, once again, would be 500 in this case, and the pool would be 300 plus 100 plus 100, and players will receive 300, 100 and 100 respectively. The first one will receive the maximum points and the rest the minimum. So once again talking about how it is kind of timed in that way. So if you are there fully capping the point the whole time, you should get the maximum amount of points, or at least that's how it's saying it. Now obviously there are going to be timings involved here, which may be a bit of an issue, but we'll have to see how that all works out. The third example is in ground battles, 3 players are capturing a zone simultaneously, and one of them is destroyed in the very end. The pool will be 300 plus 100 plus 100, since it is the initial person, which is 300, and then plus 200 for the other 2 people, and the destroyed player, since he gets annihilated, receives nothing, but the rest still get the 500 divided by 3, which equals 167 points. So it doesn't knock itself down in amount of points, it just means that the player who died receives none of the points. And I'm guessing that depends on how much you actually capped. The last example is in naval, and you have 2 players. They are capturing a zone simultaneously, and one of them was destroyed in the very end. The pool will be 175 plus 60, since the base is, 175? Where are they getting 175 from? The surviving player receives 118 points. The second one gets nothing, since his vessel was destroyed. I've got a feeling that that is not supposed to be that number. 175. Because 150 is the base amount for naval. And if you add another player to it, it says 60 for naval. So that doesn't add up. Where do you get 175 from? Since it says the base amount is 150. I've got a feeling that we've been bamboozled here, and they've decided to actually get this one at the back wrong. Let's just, what was I doing? Oh yeah, plus 60. Right, there we go. Oh dear. There we go. And divide that by 2. Yeah, I'll give you 117.5. How odd. Anyway. So let's get stuck into this idea. The idea of having a base amount of points that somebody can have, and then trying to the problem is now, right, with capturing zones, is somebody can capture it for, let's say, 10 seconds, and then somebody comes along and only sits there for 1 second, and they get the same amount of score as the person who has sat there for the extended period of time. The reason why this is generally beneficial for teamwork is because you can all go on the point at the same time, therefore you all can get equal score, so this can set you up for your secondary spawn in ground forces and also naval forces if you want to get yourself into a plane. If you decide to take away that in favor of a different system which rewards people who get there first, you are taking away the teamwork element and basically giving it to the fastest player, or giving it to the people who want to abuse the system. Because there is also an issue which is built into these numbers. So the issue is, the more people you have on a base, the less points you're going to get, right? So I'll show you with an example, right? Let's talk about ground battles. We're just going to say that technically everybody gets on the points simultaneously, so we don't have to deal with the extra nonsense. So the first player, no matter what happens, is going to get 300. Okay? Now let's say 5 other players come on to the point as well. So that would be plus 500 in our case, right? Because it's plus 100 per person. That equals 800. Now, 800... we now have to divide by 6, because there are 5 extra people plus the original, so let's just say there are 6. 133.333333. Now if we compare that to the example given, where if there are only 3 people on the point, you can see they have 167 points between them. So it is giving you less points depending on how many people are on the cap circle. And you can kind of understand why they're doing this. The reason for this, at least from the positive point of view, is that the more people you have on the cap point in the old system could give you a inherent advantage over the enemy team, especially if they weren't as coordinated as yours, because half your team could get score, therefore it would be much easier to get into planes, whereas the enemy team wouldn't get a lot of score, and therefore could not get into their secondary vehicle as easily. Now, my answer to that is, that's called teamwork. I don't know how else to put it, and by taking away that, and in favor of this system, you are punishing people for waiting for people to cap the zones. And you can still do it, but understand, as I've shown, that if you have 3 people, you all get 167 points, and that's if you don't die, remember. If you have 6 people, you get 133. Let's say you wait for, 9 people, right? So you've got the base 300, then you add the 900, so you got 1200, right? And then you got to divide it by 10. You get 120 each. So every person you have on this cap circle is going to give you less score. So now, if I just take that from an individual's point of view, because remember, even though War Thunder is a team game, it is very much a team game which is built by the individuals. And what I mean by this is, even though you're sat on teams, it's not a one-on-one scenario, individual actions in the game win you the match. Unless you are a heavily coordinated team in something like squadron battles, but in, normal battles, in the average PvP, scenario that you get, it is individual actions which will actually win you the game, whether they're positive or negative. So now you are increasing the reason for people to take these individual actions instead of doing the teamwork actions, which would be waiting for people on points, especially the initial point, which is generally where people wait. Now you are penalizing them for waiting. Now, yes, this could increase speed of battles beginning, but it gets rid of one of the core teamwork aspects of the actual scenario, which for me is not good. That we already have enough of those individual things. Why take one away from the teamwork side of things when instead maybe you could take away something from the individual side of things? Maybe you could take away, if you were worried about score, make it so machine guns can't give you score, right? Or maybe artillery doesn't give you score. Something that isn't a teamwork action compared to waiting for people on a zone. So now, with this change, from an individual point of view, it is much better to be selfish in the game, to get as many points as you can so you can carry the team. If you think that you are better than the rest of your team, if you're a high echelon player, let's say, it is better for you to disregard your team on caps and just cap them and just get them done, because you can get the most points. And if anybody else decides to try and cap, you're going to get less points. So you are literally incentivized to screw your own team here to win the match, right? Which sounds really weird. It sounds really, really weird. But if you are one of those high echelon players, which I personally don't think I am, but if you are one of those players who is up there, in the top, 5th percentile, then what you could do is that. And I would say according to this new system, that is the correct thing to do. Because if you don't do that, you are putting yourself at an inherent disadvantage to the person on the other side who is doing that. It's a weird and odd system. It definitely promotes individual players. But I would like, personally, for War Thunder to move towards a more cooperative, teamwork-based game. Because I think that is much more interesting from a PvP aspect than, just an individualistic game. Think about how a lot of these successful PvP games have a co-op element to them. Rainbow Six Siege is a great example. Any Call of Duty Search and Destroy mode. MOBAs, you have a team versus team, you have to work together. In War Thunder, it doesn't feel like that right now. And making changes like this make it even more further away from the idea of teamwork. So hopefully, we get something such as, maybe extra bonuses, kind of like how we see with supporting fire or scouting, see them actually fully given their proper rewards instead of just some SL here and there. And maybe, if we're going to have this change with capture points, maybe in other areas we can actually gain in the teamwork aspect. But for me, if we're just saying, is this a good or bad change? From my perspective, this is a bad change. Because I would like people to work much closer together instead of being, the gunslinger who tries to carry the match in his all confident way. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.